Welcome to this little lesson about essay format and how to think about constructing an essay. This will work for your college essays, for personal narrative, and even for analysis of whatever you read. The whole point of an essay is that you have a main point and you construct it in a way that it makes sense to the reader. So a lot of times right now with the college essays, students are saying, I don't know how to start my essay, or I don't know what to say, or I don't know what to do next. And I don't want to put words in your mouth and tell you what to write about, though I will give you suggestions. But when it comes down to it, you're the one who has the stuff to say. You're the expert on your content. However, I am the expert on how to organize essays. So what you're going to do is right here, go to your class handouts. I just went to a random class. So if you go here on the front, this folder here, Daily Agenda, is where you find out what we do every day. Go down here to the class handout notes. And if you have not done so already, and I mentioned this in class, Ozgur's essay formula, graphic, and explanation, make this your friend. So here you can read it if you are very inclined to words. And it's very good, just like directions. It goes all the way through. This is great if you're more of a visual person. And I'm making this video for people who are really good with the auditory. So basically, right here, I drew this as a graphic, a computer graphic. This really here should be higher than this. That was kind of hard to tell. You do not want these two things to go into a whole circle, because then if you think about what you're going to say, it just keeps on spinning and spinning. This really here, think of your conclusion as being higher than your introduction. Just like when you do that plot line that everyone knows about in fiction, usually you learn something, so the plot line should be higher at the end. So anyway, if you think about your essay, and you can just make this as a graphic organizer for yourself, whenever you do an essay, you can draw this graphic and fill things in along the way. Over here is your introduction. What are you going to start out? How are you going to start your essay? What are you going to say? If you don't know what to put first for your introduction, just skip it. Because the whole point of an introduction is to introduce the entire essay that you've written. And if you haven't actually written the main part of your essay, it's kind of hard to think how to introduce it, right? So that gets kind of deep when you think about it, but that's a big cause of writer's block, or like the myth of writer's block, because it's not a thing, really. Anyway, so what happens is people are staring at a blank screen because they don't know how to write the first paragraph that the reader reads. And here's the big thing is, many times what the reader reads first isn't necessarily what the writer writes first. So just start with the body. And the body, what you can do is in the center, it's all about the title. All you can do is put a little spoke off of this and write what you want to write. And as you come up with more sequence of events, you can spoke it out and come up with different parts that you want to write with. And it's great because if you do it out of order, there's always going to be extra room here to create another spoke off of your wheel. All right? So you do that. Over here is your conclusion. Think about your conclusion very similar to the introduction, but it offers something deeper and meaningful. So the conclusion is really, if you think of a lawyer where you have your closing argument, it puts everything all together and gets to the main point. So save things for the conclusion that wrap it all up. With your introduction, the biggest thing that I see that people put it in their introduction is way too many things in the introduction. If you say the main point of your paper in here, your thesis, and then you put your supporting points in the introduction, that's horrible, because that's like watching the trailer to a movie and it has every single plot point in the trailer. You're not going to want to watch the movie. You'll be like, great, I just saw it in those like 30 seconds, right? So withhold information in the introduction, but just treat it like a foreshadow for the entire body that you explore. And then your conclusion is the main point. The message is in there. Now, within the body, you will have the evidence of that theme throughout, because you will have different words that tend to align with one another that go along with the introduction and the conclusion. The title is in the center. It's all about the title. The title comes from the conclusion. I cannot say that enough. Reason being is you read the title first at the top of your paper, and the title is supposed to be interesting and give you a hint about what the paper is going to be about, but it's catchy because you wonder, I wonder where they're going with that. And then by the time they read it in the conclusion, they say, oh, okay, that's what they mean. That's really, if you can do that time and time again, then it's a consistently solid approach for an essay. So you read the title first, it gets taken from the conclusion, it's a foreshadow of what's to come, and that's developed a little bit more in the introduction. Then most of the paper is about the body paragraphs with some transitions go throughout. You can always insert transitions towards the end of your writing process to smooth it out. Don't worry too much about them. You can always add them, because the different paragraphs in the body is just hitting enter and tab because you have a new thought and you just start a new paragraph. It's white space that makes it convenient for the reader. I can read 2 essays with the exact same words. One puts paragraphs where they're supposed to go and one doesn't, and it has the same exact thoughts, but it's a courtesy to the reader, all right? So don't get too jammed up about starting new paragraphs. When in doubt, hit enter and tab. So you read it all, the conclusion pulls everything together. It's not a throwaway, it's not just restating the introduction in opposite order, but it comes to the main point. So a lot of times what happens is I'll write my body paragraphs first, stand back, say, okay, so what actually was my point? I come with my conclusion and make sure that I have that. Then I create the title so it has a nice spine to the whole thing. It has focus, it has organization. So you make sure your body paragraphs are helping to prove your conclusion. Then you go and you write your introduction and find an interesting way to set that up for the reader. Writing your introduction first, don't worry about it. Now that you know that, what I want you to do, take a break mentally, let that sink in, get a snack, come back, all right? Once you do that, go back. All right, why is this not doing that? Oh, okay, here we go. So what you're going to do is you're going to go back to this folder here, class handouts. Go to college essay resources. Here's one essay. Here's another essay. Or actually, it's the same essay. One is called community service. This is community service annotated for the essay format. So here's one, and it's the exact same, but it has some colors. Same thing here. Shelves 1 through 5 is the title of the essay, and then I have it annotated for the essay format. So why don't we start with community service? Go get this one. Click onto it. Takes a second, it's spinning. And then what you're going to do here is make a copy of this. So you go File and make a copy. Do that first. It keeps on defaulting back to editing mode where it should be, where it's only viewing, because I don't want you to be able to mark it up. So File, make a copy, and I want you to read Community Service Isn't For Me. See if you can find those evidences of what I just said about the essay format in here. Where do you see the title from the conclusion? Where does the introduction start? Where does the body start? Where do you see the conclusion? And where do you see the main points, and how does it all hang together? So take a couple of minutes, do that, mark it up. What you should do is pause the video, do that, come back. All right, so did you do that? Because I took a moment for you to do that. What you should then do is go back and see what I did, I marked it up. So we have there, and we have all of my comments over here. So you can make a copy of this, or you can just watch, but here we go. Community service isn't for me. If you look down at the bottom, look at that. Community service isn't for me. I didn't make that up. That structure, that formula actually exists. All right, so community service isn't for me, and it says here, community service isn't for me. It actually says it in the introduction too. Now, before you start making assumptions, keep reading. So kind of a little clunky way that they introduce it, but it is a clear introduction. And then it says here, in September of my sophomore year. So it starts out introducing about service. And then within the body, you see communities, happens to be in the first sentence. Those are called topic sentences. Didn't do it here, I don't think, unless I missed it. But then here at the end, community service isn't for me. And it says right here, Esta and Amani. And you'll see earlier here, she talks about, I thought I highlighted it, but within here, she talks about Esther and Amani within the body. Where does she talk? It's like Esther is the one kid she helped, and Amani, I think, is her host mother, right? So right there, you can see how this writer does that. And take a moment, you can read here too. It might help. Oh, here it is. Here's the Amai. I thought she said Amani, but maybe that's a typo. And here's Esther. Okay, so we got Esther and Amani, because what she's saying is community service isn't for me. She doesn't mean that she doesn't feel like doing community service. What she means is it's really for people like Esther and her Amani. And that's the whole point at the end. That's the message. Oh, it does say Amai. So, my bad. I got that wrong. So, Amai. See how she does that? See how that works? Now, this annotation is mainly for the organization, which will help with your focus. Didn't really focus a whole lot on the content and the style. Let's do that again with the other essay. So go shelves 1 through 5. And again, this keeps on changing to editing mode. Grr. I wonder what'll happen when you go to do it. File, make a copy. Annotate this for the Ozgur essay format. Take a couple minutes. Pause the video. Come back to it when you're finished. So here it is, shelves 1 through 5 essay annotated for the format. And there we have it. And again, it's in editing mode. I think I give up. So what you do is you can download it, you can make a copy so you have it. Shelves 1 through 5 shelves. She's setting it up. Each bookshelf cradles the story of my life, and that sets up the construction of shelf 1 of her life. That's one chapter. She's using the whole thing as a metaphor. Shelves 2 and 3, shelves. Shelves 4, shelf 4, because she's in her shelf 4 right now of her life. And then she moves on to shelf 5, shelf 5, shelf, books. The bookshelf is me. So she doesn't say exactly shelves 1 through 5. I really think she could have put that there. That would not have hurt her to say, so throughout my life, I am my shelves 1 through 5 because the bookshelf is me. That would have made it, I think, that much stronger. But her message is that through looking at her bookshelf, it's talking about her life, very similar in treatment to that hands essay. And I think I only have 15 minutes, so I gotta stop, and I hope this helped you. If you have any questions, see me again and look at the other resources in the folder. Bye.